Hey everybody, it's Peter from Brantford Kia, and today we're going to talk about the 2019 Kia Soul EX Plus. Now first of all, let's start with the Kia Soul. This is a car that is kind of iconic for a brand that hasn't been around all that long. So the Kia Soul came out when all the box cars were out. So Honda Element, Scion XB, the Nissan Cube, and the Kia Soul. So the Kia Soul is the only one of those cars that went on to have a second generation. Now there's a lot of talk about why that happened. In the States especially, one of the best marketing campaigns in automotive history was the hamster campaign. And you'll see some hamsters in our showroom. They still brought that to Canada a little bit. A lot of people thought maybe it's the hamster campaign, maybe it's a marketing campaign that made sense. That's why that car took off and the other box cars didn't. I happen to think that it's not because this was the better box car, but because this was a better overall car. And we're starting to see that today because this car has kind of been the leader in creating a whole new segment that's really hot right now. And that segment is the crossovers that are a size smaller than what we call small SUVs. So things like the Kia Sportage, maybe the Honda CR-V, the Toyota RAV4. So all of those manufacturers and many more are looking at or have brought out cars smaller than those cars to compete in this segment. And this car continues to be a hot seller for us, even though it's not a brand new car for us, because it makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. So we're gonna go take a look at it. We're gonna take a look at the outside, the inside, we're gonna look at the trunk, the back seats, and we're gonna work our way to the driver's seat and talk about why this car makes sense for a lot of people and maybe why it makes sense for you. So let's go take a look. So although the Kia Soul started life as sort of a box type car, when you actually look at the surface, especially in the front end, you see a lot more roundness to it than you might think. It's very curved off here. There's some good sloping in here, just like a regular car. Little things for aerodynamics that go a long ways. This grille is actually a false grille. It's not actually the actual grille. Down here is where the air comes in, air intake. You don't need a ton on a modern car, but it does have that down lower. This particular model, it's got the projector beam headlights, it's got fog lights down low, a lot of sort of nice aerodynamic touches, a little bit of what they call a power bulge here. You probably can't see it in the video, but it is raised up a little bit in here. The engine on this car is a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, and that's where this car makes some sense, is this gave you that crossover SUV style practicality, but it's very much like a car. It's got a 2-liter engine like a 4-cylinder car. In fact, this engine, Kia likes it so much that the basic components of this engine, they put in the fully redesigned 2019 Kia Forte. Now it's tuned differently there, it runs an Atkinson cycle, there's a whole bunch of different things there, but the basic bones of it are the same engine here as in our 2019 Forte. So when they introduced a brand new car for the next generation, they're still continuing to use the engine that's in this car. It's got a lot of life left in this engine. It's it's something that's been really good for us and really practical. So there's 3 levels of the Kia Soul. There's a 1.6-liter engine, that's the entry-level car. It's a good entry-level car if that's what you're looking for. The 2-liter is the most popular engine. That is in this car here, so it's got sort of the mid-level horsepower, about 170 horsepower. Then you move up to the turbo engine, which actually has the best fuel economy and the most performance. The 2-liter turbo engine gives you all that torque down low in the revs, and that's why that's good. But it's also got a 7-speed dual clutch transmission, whereas this has a traditional automatic transmission. It's a 6-speed transmission, so you can get a little bit more power and get some more fuel economy if you want to step up to the turbo. That's our SX model for 2019. But the majority of Kia Souls we sell are this model, this engine. It's still very peppy, still very practical, still very efficient, and it just makes sense. Another area where you won't notice curves, and you won't be able to see it from the video, it's got a good slope to the window, but it's also got a good curve to the windshield here. You don't see a lot of that here. It really curves around, and that again helps with aerodynamics. So even though you see a boxy shape, it's a fairly aerodynamic design, and that contributes to a few things. One, it keeps the car quiet and also helps with fuel economy. So a lot of little details you don't always notice, and some people say that the white color here looks like the Stormtrooper car. So if you're into that, there you go, you get a Kia Soul in white. Let's go take a look at the back end, some details over there. So the back end of the car is sort of the iconic, more squared off image. Now the EX Plus model does give you a couple features. I like these style of cars, I like hatchbacks because of practicality. The EX Plus has roof rails, and these roof rails are great. I'm a kayaker, and you can take all kinds of stuff on roof racks, but if you're a kayaker, you want to spread the bars fairly wide, this car can do that. You don't have limited points where you have to put bars, especially if you get the aftermarket bars. They can spread fairly wide, and of course being level, that works as well. And it's not that high to reach here. I'm about 6 feet tall, so you can easily get to that. It's not like it's a really raised up SUV, so you can put bicycles up there, things that are difficult to take in your car, you can put up there. And I think it's really smart because these are just built in nice and aerodynamic. You barely see them, but if you're the kind of person like me that looks for roof racks on a car, they're super useful. Back end of the car, again, more curves to our design here. You've got this sort of traditional look of the blacked out area down here, curved lights in here. You've got reflectors down low that sort of mimic the fog light look on the front. And again, just sort of a simple, sharp cutoff kind of look, a little bit of a spoiler built into the roof, just a smart design. While we're back here, we're gonna pop open the trunk. So the great thing about a car like this is a square car, a boxy car, gives you a lot of interior space. The other thing a big boxy entrance gives you is a lot of cargo flexibility. Now the seats are right here. It may not look super deep to you, but there's a ton of space here. There's also a ton of underfloor storage. And when you start comparing this segment, that sort of smaller, small crossover, you start realizing that most of the other cars have intrusions from the suspension where the rear wheels are. They have intrusions from the design here, and you get a small car, but you really don't gain any practicality over just a regular car. This one still gives you that big square opening, so when you fold down the seats, if you're heading to maybe a big box store or something like that, you can fit large items in here easily. So those few times a year where you need what you think is a truck or an SUV, this car can fit a surprising amount of things because of its big square opening. And really in this class, that's the big difference. Is a lot of the competitors really don't have a big opening to their trunk as well as a good sized trunk. And sometimes people think the trunk looks smaller, and it's just because it's the same size as the opening. Sometimes when you see a small opening and it opens up to a bigger trunk, you think the trunk looks bigger, but there's a lot of space in here, a lot of usable space. And that's the big difference between this car and some of its competitors, is the usable space. Let's work our way to the back seat, because that's another area where this car really excels. All right, the rear seat of the Kia Soul. Now this is the compromise that all of our competitors make that the Kia Soul doesn't make, and I think it's what's giving this car legs. The reason why it's been able to be a leader and have redesigns and have second generations, and there's a third generation that will be planned for this car, and it all comes down to all of our other competitors didn't think about rear seat space. Now this is good for a lot of reasons. First of all, in the Kia Soul you sit taller. So although originally this car was designed for young people, what we find is young people like it. There's a lot of reasons to like it, but older people also like it because not only can they sit taller in the front and get in nice and level, their guests can get into the back. So I'm about 6 feet tall. The the roof line comes down here by the door. I can still easily clear it, but I've got, you know, more than a fist worth of space between my head and the ceiling. It's one of the very few small crossovers that has real usable backseat space. Just because you can fit doesn't mean you'll be comfortable. And that's where this car tends to sell a lot. A lot of people say, oh, the Kia Soul, I know what it looks like, I don't want it, it's not my style. But then they get in and they buy this car, and our Kia Soul buyers are some of our most loyal buyers, and part of it is because of the backseat space. You can take full-size adults. So a couple other things to note. The seat is level with my legs. My legs are on the seat. It feels like you're sitting in the front seat of a car. I could drive in this car for 6 hours in the back seat. I've got tons of knee room. The angle of the back is comfortable. Again, we mentioned the headroom. You've also got good width. For a fairly small car, it's quite a comfortable car for width. You could take 5 people in here. I would suggest if you're doing a 6-hour trip, you take no more than 4. But again, more center seat space than many of our competitors as well. It's just a car that makes sense. Couple of little things. A lot of things are designed round on the inside. We'll show you that as we move to the front. But that roundness of design on the inside makes it really sharp. Door handles, speaker grills. You've got bottle holders in the door. You've got a cup holder in here, 2 cup holders in the armrest. Another thing with the armrest on a lot of our cars, they don't fold down to the seat. They sit up higher. What that means is they meet you where your arm is naturally resting. So again, that comfort. The other thing I really like, Kia Soul has very wide opening rear doors. Now that may not seem like something you look for when you're shopping for a car, but it really is something that makes a lot of sense. If you're sticking adults in here, sure, they're practical. But if you're sticking kids and child seats in the back here, a wide opening door is just the only way to go. You can get them in, make sure they're secure, makes a ton of sense. So, rear seat, you need to know it's got tons of rear seat space, but not just space, also comfort. And that's something you should try in this car compared to our competitors. We have no problems with you doing that because headroom, legs comfortably on the seat, arms comfortably on the side, and then this EX Plus Model 2, my armrest on the door here, it's a padded armrest. So my arm is not sitting on the hard plastic like it would be in some other cars. You know, just so much practicality because Kia spent the time to think about the passengers, and it allows you to move from a larger vehicle, harder to park, harder to drive, into a smaller vehicle, but retain big car space in the rear seat. Let's move to the front now. All right, front seat, similar message as the back seat. Instead of getting up to an SUV or down to a car, this tends to be the height that a lot of people find themselves easy to get into and out of, because you just come in level. Your hip point is at a good point. You've got a lot of adjustability here depending on how big and how tall, how short, how big you are. Let's start with the seat. The seat is height adjustable. Simple pumps it up nice and tall, so you can see the hood on this car. Many cars you can't see the hood. You can see the whole thing, or enough of it, that you can see the corners of the car. You can bring it down if you want more headroom, but again, I've got tons and tons of headroom at 6 feet tall. The other thing that makes a difference, you have a tilt and telescopic steering wheel. So if you're shorter, you can move it closer, which means your legs can get closer. You don't have to worry about the airbag being too close to you. If you like me, you like to keep your arms kind of close to you, but your legs are stretched out, that works as well. The other thing to know is your legs aren't so much stretched out. They're not like some of the cars where you really feel like you're laying down in the car. You've got a nice squareness to the seat here. It's a very comfortable seating position. Again, my legs are firmly on the seat. There's a big, what they call dead pedal, which is, some people call it a footrest for your left-hand side, or yeah, the left side, left foot. Very comfortable seating position with the pedals, the gas pedal. The orientation, the driver position in this car is a little bit unique, and it's unique in a way that makes it more comfortable. Not more aggressive, more sporty, low to the ground, but a very, very comfortable feel of the car. As we talk about the inside, as I mentioned before, everything seems kind of square on the outside. Now, I did mention things are curving off a little bit for aerodynamics, but as much as the outside styling is dominated by squareness, the inside is round. Everything is circles everywhere. So of course the steering wheel, but within the steering wheel, most of our cars now have a similar control panel on all the steering wheels. The Kia Soul is different. It's got round cruise control buttons, round volume and radio control buttons. If you look at the door panel, very much a keyhole look to the door panel. It's a roundness there. The door handles themselves. The speaker grills on the right and left side of the car, on the very top of the dash, are round. There's some round detailing in the center. Everything is round in this car. The more you look for it, the more you'll see circles and roundness. Even the seats are a little different style than some of our other cars. They can incorporate that roundness to them. While we talk about the seats, let's talk about the contrast stitching. For a while, this car came with a contrast stitching that was kind of a greenish, yellowy color. This contrast stitching, and again, this is white on the exterior, it looks white to me. It's probably a light gray, but it's sort of a neutral tone. So black seats with a little bit of a gray pattern on the back of these seats, which we'll show you right here. But also that contrasting stitching is sort of a more neutral color than it has been in the past. Let's talk some features in this car. Lots to talk about. We'll cover some basics here first of all. Let's just talk very in front of you in the dash here. Headlights, they're automatic headlights, which means you don't have to worry about turning them on or off. You set them to auto, they will turn on. You do have fog lights in this car, as you said. You can turn the headlights on and off if you want. It's not something that you have to leave in auto. If you are driving in a snowstorm, there's lots of ambient light. You can still turn those on. You do have steering wheel controls, like I mentioned, radio controls, cruise control. You can change the drive modes, so that changes the way the car behaves a little bit. If you're driving economically, you can put it in eco mode. It will help you get better fuel economy. Other modes as well you can try. Bluetooth buttons are right on the wheel. Again, a unique steering wheel in the Kia Soul compared to our other products, and still gives you a lot of functions there. The EX Plus model has a heated steering wheel. Now that's standard on all the EX Plus models. Of course, you also have heated seats, heated front seats in this car. So if you're looking for a good car in the winter, a car that you sit more comfortably in, but you have heated steering wheel, heated seats, very, very comfortable. This one has automatic climate control as well. So you set the temperature to whatever temperature you want. It'll bring the car to that temperature, keep you comfortable, whether it needs to be heated up, whether it needs to be cooled down. Just set it to whatever temperature, whatever number you want. So if it's 22 degrees, set it to 22 degrees and off you go. It's got a big screen in here. Now that big screen does a lot of things for you. It's a backup camera, which you can see here. It's a very clear backup camera. Sometimes it doesn't show on the screen the same way as it does in person, but I've driven some high-end vehicles from other manufacturers that don't have anywhere near as clear of a backup camera as this screen. That screen also gives you Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. If you want to know more about those, search our YouTube channel for Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. You'll find out a lot about those. A big feature on both of those systems is that allows you to have navigation in this car. It works through your cell phone, but it's on the screen here. Gives you some more voice controls, great voice recognition system. Just a great system there. This car still has Sirius satellite radio. So satellite radio, when you leave here, you get 3 free months of it. You can subscribe and get satellite radio, which means if you travel across the country, you can keep it on the same station, commercial free, and it'll literally, you won't lose reception across the whole country. You won't have to change stations every time. Yeah, I mean, where do I start? You can plug your phone in down here again with that. It is a 6-speed automatic transmission. So again, a roundness around the gear shift, you can see that here as well. But it's a 6-speed automatic. So you just put it in drive and forget about it. If you want to manually shift this car, you do have that option, and that allows you to do that. The other thing the EX Plus button, the EX Plus has that's nice is a push button start. So I like push button starts because you can keep the key in your pocket all the time. You can, to unlock the car, there's a button on the outside of the door handle. As long as the key's on my body, you touch that button, it'll unlock the door. You touch the start button, it'll start the car, and you've never taken the key out of your pocket. Same thing with getting out, turning the car off with the start button, start-stop button, and touch the door handle on the button, car's locked. You never take the key out of your pocket. It makes so much sense to do that. What else have we got? One iconic thing I should touch on before we finish up on the inside. You have the mood and music button down here. Now, the original Kia Soul had speaker grill lights that lit up and changed with either your mood, so in other words, mood lighting that sort of cycles through, or with the music. It gets louder and quieter, or as the music is louder, they'll pulse with the music, brighter as the music's louder. They brought that back. It's a feature you don't have to have, you don't have to use. It's almost impossible to film in the daylight, so I may not put it in this video, but there's little lights around the speakers, kind of a cool thing. Nobody else does it, and that's why it's cool. So if you get this car and it's new, you can try it out. If you like it, I think it's great. A lot of our Kia Soul owners love it. Some people never use it, don't worry about it. What else can we talk about? Again, space is a big thing, practicality and comfort, fuel economy, easy to park. One thing about this car, a square box allows it to make it easier to see out of as well. So you've got the backup camera to help you park. It's got guidelines on there. You've also got great visibility all the way around the car. You can see where the back of the car is because it's square. You don't have to guess how long the trunk is behind the window, but you can also use the backup camera for that. But you can see around you, and I think when we talk about safety, the biggest safety feature is just visibility, and this car's got great visibility. Speaking of safety, a lot of high-strength steel in this car, 5-star safety rating, great things, and of course you've got our Kia warranty as well. So I've probably answered some of your questions, but maybe not all. Let's finish this wrap up, and if you have questions, we want to know about them. So in a lot of our videos, we don't answer everybody's questions. So why do we do these videos? Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, we're doing them to earn your business. If you're in the Greater Toronto area, come contact Brantford Kia. We'll help you get into a Soul. We'll talk to you about it. We know our cars, we know our product, and we do very well for those reasons. We'll also work with you to find a car that's right for you. Our salespeople are on commission, and that can help them work to find the best car for you and not just find the best car for their pay plan. The other thing is, when we don't answer your questions, let us know in the comments below. A lot of our video ideas come from you, and when you have questions on a car like this, we can make other videos about it, which we have a few online about some of the previous model year Kia Souls, but we can also sometimes make new videos to answer, as well as answering the comments. So if you have questions, maybe I didn't answer your question, let us know, and we'll do our best to answer you. And everybody, thanks for watching, and if you're looking for a brand new Kia, swing on by Brantford Kia.